The radio crackled aboard the Philippine Coast Guard PCG vessel BRP Teresa Magbanua. A Chinese militia ship was shadowing them again. But this time, the response was swift. Holding their course, the Filipino crew delivered a firm message over the radio. You are in the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. Leave immediately.
The Philippine Maritime stones up the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, of which you are a signatory state.
Moments later, a Philippine resupply boat slipped past the blockade, successfully delivering provisions to its outpost in the South China Sea. A small but symbolic victory, a sign that the Philippines is no longer backing down. For centuries, the Philippines has been shaped by the sea. With over 7,600 islands and an exclusive economic zone, EEZ, spanning 2.2 million square kilometers, its waters hold vast marine resources, critical trade routes, and strategic outposts. Yet, these same waters have become a battleground with foreign incursions, especially from China, threatening its sovereignty. But the tides are shifting. No longer a mere bystander, the Philippines is fighting back, modernizing its Navy and Coast Guard, forging alliances with the US and Japan, strengthening its legal standing through international rulings, and amplifying its voice on the global stage. The country is building a maritime force that can defend its blue frontier. But will it be enough? Can deterrence and diplomacy prevent further aggression? The answer remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the Philippines is no longer standing idly by. In early 2024, a Philippine Coast Guard vessel patrolling the West Philippine Sea found itself in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. A Chinese vessel, flying no flag but unmistakably part of Beijing's maritime militia, attempted to block its path near Ayungin Shoal. Over the radio, a calm but firm Filipino voice declared, "This is the Philippine Coast Guard. You are in our exclusive economic zone. Leave immediately." For years, these encounters have been routine. Intimidation, shadowing, water cannon attacks. But something is changing. The Philippines is no longer retreating. With a growing fleet, stronger alliances, and an unshakable legal foundation, the country is reinforcing its maritime power. The battle for the sea is not just about ships. It's about survival, sovereignty, and economic security. The South China Sea is one of the world's most hotly contested waters. Several nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, claim parts of it. But it is China's sweeping 9-dash line, which covers almost 90% of the sea, that has turned the region into a geopolitical flashpoint. Beijing has built artificial islands, deployed military assets, and harassed smaller nations' vessels, directly threatening Philippine sovereignty. Philippine officials have not minced words. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. recently stated, "We will not be bullied in our own waters. The Philippines has the right to defend its territory, and we will continue to do so."
What we see is an increasing demand by Beijing for us to concede our sovereign rights in the area because of our need to explore and exploit the resources in these areas for the benefit of our own people. And that is clear. We don't need to enter into a geopolitical nexus for determining the root cause of the problem, because we are direct victims of Chinese aggression in this and in a concentrated area thus far, in the West Philippine Sea.
The country's legal foundation for this stance is rock solid. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled in favor of the Philippines, invalidating China's expansive claims under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. Yet China continues to ignore the ruling, pushing the Philippines into a defensive but determined position. The question remains, will international law be enough, or must the Philippines build its deterrence at sea? Beyond geopolitics, the ocean is the Philippines' lifeblood. The country's fishing industry supports over 1.6 million Filipinos and contributes nearly 300 billion pesos to the economy annually. The West Philippine Sea alone provides over 25% of the nation's total fish catch, a critical food source for millions. But illegal fishing, particularly by Chinese vessels, has put this at risk. A glaring example occurred in 2019 when a Chinese vessel rammed and abandoned a Filipino fishing boat near Recto Bank, leaving 22 fishermen stranded in open water. This area is also believed to contain over 5.4 billion barrels of oil and 55.1 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, resources that could fuel the Philippines' energy security for decades. Yet, due to persistent maritime threats, these riches remain largely untapped. Without control over its own waters, the Philippines risks losing not just territory, but the economic future tied to its seas. Maritime power is not just about fish and oil. It's about protecting the nation from threats beyond the horizon. The Philippines faces a surge in smuggling, piracy, and human trafficking in its vast maritime domain. The Sulu-Celebi Sea, for instance, has been a hotspot for kidnappings by terrorist groups like Abu Sayyaf. China's gray zone tactics, harassment through its maritime militia, aggressive maneuvers, and economic coercion pose a direct threat to Philippine sovereignty. A report by the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative warns that Beijing's control of key maritime areas could give it strategic dominance over vital sea lanes, choking off the Philippines' economic lifelines if tensions escalate. Against these challenges, the Philippines is taking action. A sweeping naval modernization program is underway, bringing in missile-capable frigates, offshore patrol vessels, and new surveillance technology. Strategic partnerships with the United States, Japan, and Australia are strengthening its defense posture. And on the legal front, Manila continues to rally international support to uphold the 2016 arbitral ruling. But will it be enough? As the tides shift in the Indo-Pacific, one thing is clear: the Philippines is no longer just a bystander in the battle for the seas. It is standing its ground, one wave at a time. At dawn, the BRP Jose Rizal, the Philippine Navy's first missile-capable frigate, sliced through the waves of the West Philippine Sea. On board, a young officer scanned the horizon, his eyes fixed on the radar, a capability that, just a decade ago, the fleet sorely lacked. The message was clear: the Philippines is no longer sailing blind. After years of struggling with outdated equipment, limited funding, and an overwhelming adversary in the South China Sea, the country is now transforming into a rising maritime power. This shift is not just about new warships or missiles. It is a comprehensive, multi-pronged approach that includes military modernization, an empowered Coast Guard, strategic alliances, and diplomatic maneuvers. From defending territorial waters against illegal incursions to asserting sovereign rights in international forums, the Philippines is no longer a passive player. It is stepping up to the challenge of securing its vast maritime domain.
I urge the entire ranks of the Philippine Navy to keep up the good work, continually guided by the national interest and the democratic ideals of the Republic of the Philippines. We have a lot more to do, and the rest of our compatriots are counting on us to keep the defense of the nation. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Magandang umaga at mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Thank you.
At the heart of this transformation is the South China Sea dispute. For years, China has aggressively expanded its claims, building artificial islands, deploying Coast Guard and militia vessels, and harassing Filipino fishermen. The Philippines, with its extensive exclusive economic zone, EEZ, covering over 2.2 million square kilometers, is at the center of this geopolitical storm. The 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling in The Hague ruled in favor of the Philippines, invalidating China's sweeping 9-line claim. Yet, China has ignored the ruling, increasing its presence in disputed waters. Philippine officials have repeatedly emphasized the need to strengthen maritime power to safeguard national interests. As National Security Advisor Eduardo Año recently stated, "Our maritime domain is not just a source of resources, it is the lifeline of our economy and our security." A weak maritime force means a vulnerable nation. With fisheries, offshore energy, and trade routes at stake, the Philippines has no choice but to invest in its maritime future. For decades, the Philippine Navy was considered a brown water force, limited to patrolling coastal areas. Now, an ambitious modernization program is transforming it into a credible blue water navy, capable of operating in deeper and contested waters. The acquisition of two Jose Rizal-class frigates in 2020 marked the beginning of this shift. Equipped with modern radar, anti-ship, and anti-air capabilities, these warships are the backbone of the fleet. But the Navy is not stopping there. The government has approved the procurement of submarines, with France and South Korea competing to provide the country's first underwater combat platform. Additionally, the shore-based anti-ship missile system, SBSMS, featuring India's BrahMos supersonic missiles, is expected to significantly boost deterrence. In 2024, the defense budget hit 282 billion pesos, 5 billion USD, with a growing portion allocated to naval and air defense. While these advancements mark significant progress, challenges remain. In March 2023, the Philippine Coast Guard, PCG, found itself in a tense standoff near Bajo de Masinloc, Scarborough Shoal. Chinese vessels attempted to block a resupply mission, but this time the Philippine Coast Guard was prepared. Armed with Japan-built patrol ships and supported by real-time intelligence, the Coast Guard successfully executed a maneuver that forced the Chinese vessels to retreat, without escalating tensions into direct conflict. The PCG has become a frontline force in defending Philippine waters, focusing on maritime law enforcement, illegal fishing prevention, and search and rescue operations. This strategy allows the Philippines to counter gray zone tactics, coercive moves that fall short of open conflict, without immediate military escalation. Strategic support from Japan, the US, and Australia has further enhanced the PCG's capabilities. With new vessels, surveillance technology, and increased training, the Coast Guard is now a critical player in maintaining maritime security. Recognizing that it cannot face maritime threats alone, the Philippines has strengthened its security partnerships with allies and regional powers. The U.S.-Philippines Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, has allowed for joint military exercises, intelligence sharing, and the pre-positioning of defense assets in key areas. The Visiting Forces Agreement, VFA, ensures that U.S. forces can train with and assist Filipino troops in maritime security operations. Beyond the U.S., Japan has emerged as a key defense partner, supplying patrol boats, radars, and surveillance technology. Australia has also increased cooperation, engaging in joint naval drills and maritime law enforcement initiatives. Meanwhile, partnerships with Vietnam and Indonesia have strengthened regional coordination on illegal fishing and security concerns. These alliances send a clear message: the Philippines is not alone in defending its waters. By leveraging international support, it is building a maritime force capable of deterring threats while maintaining regional stability. While military power is crucial, the Philippines also wields international law as a weapon. Since the 2016 arbitral ruling, the country has consistently raised issues of Chinese incursions in global forums, from the United Nations to ASEAN summits. Diplomacy remains a key pillar in asserting its maritime rights. The Philippine government has increased patrols in the West Philippine Sea, filed diplomatic protests, and strengthened ties with nations that support a rules-based order in the region. By using legal frameworks and international advocacy, the country is ensuring that its maritime claims remain recognized on the global stage. While the Philippines is making strides toward a stronger maritime presence, several challenges remain. These obstacles could slow progress, limit operational effectiveness, and create vulnerabilities that adversaries might exploit. Building a credible maritime power requires massive financial investment. The 282 billion pesos, 5 billion USD defense budget for 2024 is a step forward, but it still lags behind regional counterparts like Indonesia and Vietnam. Naval modernization, especially acquiring submarines, missile systems, and surveillance aircraft, demands sustained long-term funding, something that fluctuating economic conditions and competing domestic priorities make difficult. The challenge is balancing internal development with defense spending. Infrastructure, healthcare, and social programs all demand funding, often making defense modernization a lower priority. Without a clear long-term budgetary commitment, modernization efforts risk stagnation. Compared to China's PLA Navy, which fields over 350 ships, including aircraft carriers, advanced destroyers, and nuclear submarines, the Philippine Navy remains limited. The technological gap is stark, especially in anti-air warfare, undersea warfare, and electronic warfare capabilities. Even against regional players like Malaysia or Vietnam, the Philippines still lacks advanced assets such as stealth frigates or modern submarine fleets. In intelligence and surveillance, Chinese vessels operate with cutting-edge radar, satellite integration, and drone support. The Philippines, by contrast, still relies heavily on allied intelligence sharing agreements, which, while beneficial, limit its independent situational awareness. Without a robust defense industrial base, the country remains dependent on foreign suppliers for ships, missiles, and aircraft. Delays in procurement, often due to funding or bureaucratic inefficiencies, also widen the capability gap. The Philippines has a history of defense procurement delays and inefficiencies, sometimes due to corruption or mismanagement. Past projects have been plagued by cost overruns, questionable deals, and logistical bottlenecks. Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index often ranks the country as struggling with governance issues, which can slow military acquisition processes. Bureaucratic red tape complicates policy execution. Even when agreements for new ships or radar systems are signed, implementation delays can stretch procurement timelines by years, affecting operational readiness. By 2028, the Philippines aims to strengthen its naval capabilities with the acquisition of at least 2 attack submarines, with France and South Korea emerging as the leading contenders for the deal. This marks a significant leap in the country's maritime defense strategy, introducing a new layer of deterrence in the contested waters of the South China Sea. At the same time, the expansion of missile defense is underway, with additional BrahMos supersonic missiles set to fortify coastal defenses. These high-speed precision strike weapons will enhance the country's ability to deter and respond to potential threats near its maritime borders. The Philippine Navy's fleet is also poised for growth, with plans to acquire more multi-role frigates, offshore patrol vessels, OPVs, and fast attack crafts. These additions will significantly improve patrol capabilities, ensuring a more robust presence in critical areas. Beyond hardware, the country is investing in enhanced maritime domain awareness, integrating satellite surveillance, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and cyber warfare capabilities. These advancements will provide real-time intelligence, strengthening the Philippines' ability to monitor and respond swiftly to maritime threats. The South China Sea remains one of the most contested regions globally, with growing tensions between the U.S. and China. The Philippines' Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement with the U.S. has expanded American military access to key bases. If geopolitical tensions escalate, the Philippines could become a crucial player in regional deterrence strategies. China's maritime assertiveness continues to escalate, using a mix of Coast Guard, maritime militia, and naval forces to pressure Philippine claims. As Beijing strengthens its hold over artificial islands and critical choke points, Manila must carefully balance military posturing with diplomatic restraint to avoid direct confrontation. The Philippines is navigating turbulent waters, balancing military limitations, geopolitical challenges, and internal obstacles in its quest for maritime power. Modernization is underway, but long-term success depends on sustained investment, effective governance, and strengthened alliances. While the country will never match the naval giants of the region, its growing maritime presence, legal assertiveness, and strategic partnerships position it as a critical player in Indo-Pacific security. The road ahead remains challenging, but one thing is clear: the Philippines is no longer merely reacting to threats. It is actively shaping its maritime destiny. As new warships patrol disputed waters and alliances deepen, the nation is making a statement. The Philippines will defend its seas, its sovereignty, and its future. Thank you for tuning into our channel. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of global issues.